On today's episode, we'll be going over how I made this replacement patch with basic tools and very minimal skills. As you all know me already, I'm not the best fabricator. Now, if you remember from the last episode, when I cut open this piece, it was full with enough rust to make a grown man cry. After getting it cleaned up and looking at it, I already knew that I was going to struggle with making this replacement piece. It's not like I could just weld in a flat piece of metal there. And even though it's not going to be visible, I want to make sure that the patch that I make fits well enough to be able to weld it all the way around and get a nice welded seam, as this is in the wheel well and it's likely to rust again if I don't get it just right. Once I had gotten the rusted piece cut out, I kind of stared at it for a while and I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do yet. I'd never really had to deal with making a bead shape in metal before. But on my spare time, I like to watch Make It Custom, and a lot of the techniques he uses are done with very basic tools, so I figured I had an idea. So I headed over to my dad's wood shop. My idea was to use a 2x6 and then using a router, carve out this little bead. Then I could hammer form it with some kind of metal, which I would figure something out later. Now, thankfully, my dad has a router. I'm pretty sure you can carve out a piece of wood in this shape. It doesn't have to be perfect. Without a router, you could probably do it with hand tools as well, but thankfully he had that and we were able to get it pretty darn close. It might work. With all the woodworking complete, it was time to head back to my shop and get some finishing touches put on the form. It was also time to make the hammer former, or the thing that you hammer that shapes it into shape, whatever it's called. I settled for using this bolt that had a roundish head, and the way that I got it to the right shape is a technique that I saw on Instagram. Now, it's certainly not the safest technique, and I can't say I recommend it, but with a little bit of trial and error and a little bit of time, it actually worked, and I was able to get it to a pretty close shape to the original piece. With the forms now complete, it was just about hammer time. But before we could get to hammering, we need to ensure that the metal is fastened strongly to the wood. This is to ensure that you get the proper stretching and bending of the metal where you want it. Now, I've seen this done by having two pieces of wood bolted together, clamping the metal in between them, but I opted for a more simple screwing the metal to the wood and screwing the wood to my desktop. Now, if you're doing something that you want to look beautiful, I'd probably say that clamping in between two pieces of wood is going to be the way to go. That's the way that Carl from Make It Custom does it. But screwing it in held it just fine as long as you screwed it in enough places and you're screwing it outside of the area of your repair piece. That is why I first folded over this piece and then screwed in along the long edge. Now, the hammering process takes a long time, and about halfway through, with my shoulder feeling like it was on fire and about to pop out a socket, I was really wishing that I had bought an air hammer. I think I'm going to buy one now. I'll probably go to Harbor Freight and get a cheap one and test it out, but it's certainly a good idea to have one on hand if you're going to be doing this. Now, I'm proving a point. It is possible to do it by hand. It's just a lot of work and takes a lot more time than expected. This time lapse is quite deceiving. It felt like an eternity. If you are interested in this kind of content and you're enjoying what you're seeing, make sure to like the video, leave a comment down below, and if you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Subscribe! Hit that notification bell and make sure you tune in on Sundays and Wednesdays for new episodes. For being my first hammer formed piece ever, I'd say it came out pretty good, and looking at it, it seemed to have the correct bend that I needed. After holding it in place, I'm pretty certain it's going to work out, but before welding it in, I wanted to completely clean the area with my coarsest wire wheel, and all it did was expose a lot more rust than I had anticipated. I should have done this before I made this smaller patch. So it looks like we're going to have to be making a bigger patch and maybe an extension to the patch so we can weld on, and you'll be seeing that in the next episode. Perhaps I will have bought the air hammer by then, but unfortunately we are all out of time for this episode, so make sure you subscribe and I will see you on Sunday.